You're listening to the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Bill McIntyre, and it's time for this week's Long Island News, the show that talks to newsmakers from Nassau and Suffolk County that matter to Long Island and Long Islanders like you. So each week we'll have a conversation about issues that affect all of us. I live on Long Island just like you, and I do want to know more about where my tax dollars are going, and I want to know more about the people making the big decisions that affect all of us. Well, today I'd like to welcome back to my show Mr. Anthony D'Esposito, a Hempstead Town Councilman, retired NYPD Detective, and former chief of the Island Park Fire Department, who is running for Congress on the Republican ticket in the 4th Congressional District in southern parts of Nassau County, which is the seat currently held by Kathleen Rice. Mr. D'Esposito, welcome back to this week's Long Island News.
Thanks for having me. How's everybody doing?
Oh, pretty good for a Friday. I figure we can hit as many hot-button issues as possible in the next 30 minutes. Let's see. Let's start with the big issue on everyone's mind, inflation. What do you think Congress can do to temper the prices of gas, food, and other items?
Well, I think what's first and foremost is we need to focus on, energy independence here in America. We need to start making America a priority. And what we need to do is really focus on strengthening the way that we are perceived on a global scale. Since Joe Biden has taken office, we have really, unfortunately, been looked at as weak. And there's no doubt that other countries, other nations are taking advantage of the fact that it seems like the leadership in America is not the best that it could be. And that's a problem. So we need to focus on, like I said, putting America and making America a priority. We need to focus on energy independence. We need to make sure that we're not focusing on shipping goods to the border to take care of those who are entering here illegally. And we need to help our local businesses, because without a doubt they are suffering right now, trying to keep stock on their shelves, trying to keep food on their tables for restaurants and bar owners. So we need to focus on local issues and make sure that those businesses that are the lifeblood of our community, are taken care of and looked out for. And quite frankly, not that it all leads back to crime, but, the issues that we're having now with businesses closing and it costing so much more for businesses to operate. You go here on Long Island in Nassau County. I mean, just as an example, CVS has a policy that they've recently put in place that they are not engaging anyone who's walking into their stores and walking out with items. For example, if you remember back probably months ago, if you walked into CVS, you had the opportunity to grab one of those baskets at the front door so you could put all your items in a basket. If you go to CVS now and you ask for one of those baskets, most of the CVSs say that they're unavailable. And they're unavailable because they're trying to deter people from using those baskets, filling them up with goods, and walking right out the front door with no repercussions. Now, is that a direct result on inflation? Absolutely not. But it is hurting local businesses. And places like CVS may be able to stay in business because they're such a large conglomerate. But how do the mom and pop shops along our main street, how do they survive with the cost of home heating oil, with the cost of goods, and then fighting the fact that, this crime wave that we've seen that's been led and fueled by Democrats throughout New York and the United States of America, that we're just allowing people to walk out of places with goods. We're allowing people to go into restaurants and order food and eat dinner and then walk out without paying the bill. It's not the America that I think most of us signed up for, and it's definitely not the New York that I took an oath to protect and serve.
Well, I mean, I don't know that anyone's allowing any of those things. I know that big corporations like 7-Eleven, I've heard of, guys who were cashiers at a 7-Eleven getting fired because they went after someone who stole something. So that's been a corporate standard operating procedure for a while. That if you catch somebody who's swiping items from the store was to not engage. They didn't want their employees putting themselves in danger because somebody stole a little bag of Skittles. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I understand the concern, but I don't know that, and again, we talk about crime. The police commissioner in Nassau County says we're the safest county in the country. And then politicians start to run for office, and all of a sudden we're Crime Wave USA. So I have a hard time. I can put a microscope on any issue in Nassau County and make it seem like that's the only thing going on. And I don't know. Inflation is pretty big. One of my big problems was with the Federal Reserve Bank. Their main concern is capping the amount of money that people can take home. I never hear them complain about the huge profits that corporations are making and just how inflationary that is. And it's about to happen again. The Saudis are holding back 200 million barrels a day of oil. Do you think our gas prices are going to go up?
Absolutely.
Are we going to blame that on Biden?
No, I mean, listen, it is a direct result of like you said, the Saudis holding the oil hostage. But
well, they're trying to help the Soviet Union win a war. That's what that's about.
Absolutely, but I think that the issues that we're dealing with the war between Russia and Ukraine. I'm not trying to place all the blame on the administration right now, but I think that following the botched exit from Afghanistan, I think that
okay, but again, that wasn't Biden. Who made that deal? Who made the withdrawal from Afghanistan deal? That was Donald Trump.
All I'm saying is that we've seen in the last 2 years that we have, without a doubt, our government and our leader is viewed as weak, and that's a problem.
Okay, now now you say that we're viewed as weak, whereas from the previous administration we were just viewed as hilarious. Okay. I don't know that one is any worse than the other. I don't see Biden as being viewed as weak. I really don't see that.
I guess we're allowed to have two different opinions.
Yeah, granted. Okay.
And I think that opinion, when you look at poll numbers, whether they're done by Democrats or Republicans, I mean, the fact is that a majority of the people that live in this district are not happy with the performance of Joe Biden. Right.
Well, okay. And granted, and as patriots, that's what we should be doing. Hammering the administration that is currently in power over the things that they do to make sure we keep them on the straight and narrow.
Well, I agree. But I also think that, I want to make it very clear that, and this is not about who's in power, because I've been the first to say in many debates and many discussions that I've had, when Joe Biden won as president and when he was sworn in, I was always brought up to obviously root on our leader and hope that, obviously his success is our success. So I think that many people are still rooting for the success, but unfortunately, a majority of the people that live in this district, from the polls that I've seen, are not happy with the performance.
Right. Well, yeah, and that's as it should be, I think, because there's so much on that plate. I don't know how anybody could really, unwind it. But let's move on to some other things. So we talked about, crime and public safety issues right now. Oh, well, there's another line here. You were recently called out for tweeting out that video that showed the EMS worker, that poor woman who murdered on the job in the city.
Absolutely.
And the thing I don't get now, you kind of point to Ms. Gillen and the Democrats as for blame for that. I would like you to clear that up. I don't get that.
We don't believe that the Democratic Party has caused the insane crime wave that has struck New York City. I mean, there's no question.
Okay.
The fact that the matter is that Laura Gillen has donated over $320,000 to members of the state Senate, the state Assembly, and Democrats who have voted for, authored, and been proponents of the bail reform, cashless bail.
Okay.
She's campaigned with a guy like Todd Kaminsky, who was lauded on the floor of the state Senate as putting the pen to the paper. And we can say whatever we want about cashless bail. Listen, I know the justice system. I was a detective for a long time. I've seen people that get caught up in the justice system, and I understand that there needed to be changes.
Right.
But when you make changes haphazardly without having any conversations with those who actually take the criminals off the street, there's a problem.
No, I agree with you 1,000%. I really do.
And because of the fact that we've created a state where criminals seem to be treated better than law-abiding citizens, where instead of putting handcuffs on criminals, we're putting the handcuffs on cops and detectives who are unable to do their job.
Okay.
That's created a climate, and and I remember it. I remember when Bill de Blasio was in office, and I remember the day that Ramos and Lou were assassinated in the 8-4 precinct. And I remember those radio transmissions, and I remember the days before and the days after, and I remember going out on the street, and there was an eerie silence because it was that whole situation was created by failed leadership in New York City. It was fueled. It was the fire was fanned by them, and that's the same situation that we're in now. The governor, the now governor who's running for her first election, has flat out said she's not making changes to the cashless bail. There's nothing.
The changes to the cashless bail have been continuing. I mean, they've been tweaking that thing ever since it got put in. I agree with you. I think it was thrown into the process too quickly. Somebody should have looked at that before they made it a law. And we always talk about unintended consequences with every elected official we have here. And it's
clearly done in a situation where, it needed to be pushed through, which is why they put it in the budget.
Yeah, I mean, one of my other issues with that is that there may be some kind of certainly there's a crime level in New York, but this was a campaign talking point because cashless bail had nothing to do with the rise in crime. There's no connection between people who were let go, because they were accused of doing something and they got sent home. None of those people are the ones involved in the crime you're talking about. So this is disingenuous. This is disingenuous at best. It's a good talking point for low information voters. I mean, they see the connection. Anybody can say, okay, they're letting people out. That must be the reason. But the fact is that statistics do not back that up.
Are we talking specifically about the EMS?
No.
Or we're talking about crime in general?
That was a mental health issue, too.
Okay, so
that's something else we need to address.
You are comfortable in saying that cashless bail and the criminal justice reform that has put in place has not made our streets more dangerous?
Well, they're not the same people. The people that you're talking about that committed crimes were not people who were let go in cashless bail.
Stories every day in newspapers about people who were arrested, released, and rearrested for committing.
No, recidivism. Those numbers don't jive. They don't add up.
I speak to law enforcement officers every day, and the numbers absolutely do jive. And I'm not going to take the results of some far left organization who's trying to make their numbers sound right. What's going on the streets of New York and surrounding communities is clear. I mean, we had an issue.
Oh no, it's all right. So you're basically saying that cashless bail is the direct reason for the rise, what you see as the rise in crime in New York.
Absolutely.
Okay. That's been said. So now let's go. Let's move on to.
Just to go back to it for a second. I mean, when you have someone who can be arrested for a burglary, which I believe is either an E or D felony, and they can't be held on bail, that is absolutely telling someone, go ahead and go do whatever you want. You just had the issue a couple days ago in Nassau County where Nassau County Police Department arrested, I believe, either 3 or 4 people for a ring of burglaries. 3 or 2 of them had already been detained 2 or 3 times at the border, and now they have to fight to have them be held on bail. I mean, these people are all repeat offenders.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, here's immigration, and we hear the word migrant on almost every newscast these days. What some of the Republican governors are doing in the country, they're shipping people to blue states like New York. Where do you stand on that issue as a Republican?
So I visited the border probably about a month ago, and I will tell you that everything that we read or see on the newspaper, and it doesn't matter which news you watch, whether it's Fox News or CNN, the issues that we're dealing with at the southern border are far worse than what we read and see about. It affects every industry down there. I think that we need to do a better job on a federal level to do a few things. First, we need to provide support to the Customs and Border Patrol, because if you think the morale is bad with the NYPD and certain law enforcement agencies in New York, the morale for the Customs and Border agents is even worse. I met with their union when I was down there, and, they are assaulted, and there's crimes that are committed against Customs and Border agents that aren't even prosecuted. The jails along the southern border, and listen, a lot of those communities are I think the one of the communities I visited, the median income was, I think, $30,000. So these are poor communities. Their jails are full to capacity. And, you want to talk about justice reform. I mean, there are people that have been detained at the border or stopped at the border and arrested for something. They are waiting over 3 years to see a judge and have a fair trial. So I think we need to do a few things. We need to provide more resources to our Customs and Border Patrol agents, perhaps increase Customs and Border Patrol and the numbers that they have in their ranks. We need to provide resources so that the people who are trying to come into this country and those who are, seeking asylum, that we're able to process them quicker. Because, listen, we have a shortage of workforce in this country. There are people that want to come here and they want to be part of our workforce and they want to do the right thing. I mean, I've been asked, would you support the increase of the amount of asylums per year, whatever the number is? I mean, you could increase that number to, 50,000. If you don't have resources to process them and get them through the system and vet them correctly, then what's the point of increasing the number?
Yeah, so I agree with you 1,000%. We
need to provide the resources to allow these people to seek asylum and go through the vetting process correctly. Obviously, if there's a reason why we don't feel that they should be entering this country, they're criminals, they're wanted somewhere else, then they should be sent back. But if they're coming here seeking a better way of life and seeking that American dream, as long as they do it correctly, they do it legally, and they enter this country properly, I'm all for it. My mom came here, and obviously it wasn't from a different country, but in 1955, my mom came here with her 7 brothers and sisters from Cayey, Puerto Rico. And my grandparents moved to Island Park from Puerto Rico, and they worked their tails off to provide their 8 children the best life that they could. My grandfather was a landscaper. My grandmother was a seamstress. And, is it different than what we're dealing with now? Yes. But at the end of the day, it's about the American dream. It's about providing for your loved ones a better way of life.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. But you know what? In today's atmosphere, though, we're a country of immigrants that hates immigrants.
Well, I don't think everyone hates immigrants.
Well, I'm just saying as a general pall on, the atmosphere, like we can give the customs people all the money they need to repel anybody wanting to get into the country. But you make a good point. How about the route that lets you go to legal citizenship? Because I don't know that anybody really knows how that happens in this country.
Yeah, so maybe that's where we need to provide more resources to make people understand how that happens. Because right now, too many of the people who are coming across our southern border are depending on cartels to get them over there, and obviously, starting with a cartel and getting into this country is not going to end well. Yeah, you're going to owe them money for a long time. A lot of the individuals that were incarcerated along the border, and a majority of them women, were all arrested for being drug mules, because they feel like that's their way to earn their keep in getting across this border. And we have to do better. I mean, people that are seeking asylum, coming into this nation, should not think that their only option is smuggling drugs and opioids across our border.
Yeah. Well, I think something that people kind of need to know is, there are drug smuggling. There is drug smuggling across the southern border, but the majority of drugs are coming into our country in airports. It's got nothing to do with the border. That's the talking point. That's where everybody's focused. But the real tonnage is being shipped into the country, into airports and places that really maybe don't have that kind of protection that the border's got.
Well, I agree with that, but I think that if our borders were more secure, we would have even, there's no question that there are large amounts of illegal narcotics. And I mean, there's been...
there's tunnels. Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff that they've no doubt. We spoke, we didn't really speak, well, we did a little bit, about the salt issue. I spoke to Senator John Brooks, and he mentioned that if the salt cap was gotten rid of, that Long Island would have $15 billion more in its economy.
So I would. I actually just we had our Newsday debate.
Yes, I saw it. Very good. It was very good.
Yeah, thank you. So I've always said that I would be a proponent of repealing the SALT tax. I would immediately, upon being elected and getting sworn in, ask to join the SALT caucus, which is a bipartisan caucus that I believe was first put together by Congressman Suozzi. I know Congressman Garbarino was part of it. And, continue to fight for Long Island to not only repeal it, but to make sure that it is not, re-upped in, I believe, 3 years when there's that sunset clause.
Is that how long it's going to take for this to be reversed, if that's the tack that people take?
So that it is up for another vote and to re-up it in 3 years. Obviously, I would do my part and be the voice of Long Island and Nassau County and do my best to repeal it as fast as we could.
Yeah,
but,
really.
I know that right now, I believe it's 2025 is when the SALT tax.
Goodness. Wow. At the hefty price of $15 billion a year, that's $45 billion we're talking about if we've got to wait.
Absolutely. And that's why hopefully we don't have to. Hopefully we have the votes come, this year to repeal it and get that money back into our economy, back into our local businesses, and back into the taxpayers' pockets.
Yeah, really. $15 billion. Boy, that is not chump change,
It is not.
Healthcare. Now, that's an issue that you've spoken about on the campaign trail. What's your plan to help people who maybe don't have insurance? How can you help them get it? And also lowering the prices of prescription drugs like insulin. I know that something's already happened where I believe there's a law slated to happen that would limit the price of insulin to $35.
Yeah, and as I've mentioned, throughout the campaign trail, I am in support of any and all legislation to keep prescription drugs at the lowest cost possible, especially here on Long Island, where we pay some of the highest tax rates in the country. I do believe, though, that when it comes to healthcare, we need to take a closer look. And I don't believe, because of where we live, that healthcare and prescription drugs can be painted with that broad brush. Mm-hmm. I think it really needs to be identified to certain regions, and we need to make sure that in the process of providing, the best and most affordable prescription drugs and healthcare, obviously every person that lives in the United States of America, every citizen should be afforded healthcare. But we need to make sure that in the process, we aren't restricting the funding for research, for the ability to find cures for new diseases and new things that come up.
But you know how we do that? We go back to a tax rate of about 75% for some of those big companies, because you know how they got around paying those taxes? They invested their money in research and development and things that were tax deductible.
Absolutely.
Right? We gave them a big tax break, and what did they do? They made a mint, and then they bought back their own stock to make them look healthy.
Bought back their own stock, and then the people who bared the burden were the people who needed the prescriptions.
Yeah. Well, I think as Americans, most of us are fairly embarrassed because we're the only industrial country on the planet that doesn't have universal health care, and we seem to be unable to come to a consensus on how we could do that. I think the real thing we're all going to be smacking ourselves is when we finally do get it, how much cheaper it's actually going to be as compared to the cluster we have now.
I pray that is the case. I really do.
Yeah, I don't know if it'll happen in my lifetime because, I've spoken to people at Northwell Health. I've spoken to a lot of people in the healthcare industries, and I don't know, they don't seem to be of the mind that it's going to happen anytime soon. On Long Island, healthcare is a big business, and it can be an upheaval.
Seems like it gets bigger every day.
Yeah, it really does. And the little things that bother me is like people pay for insurance, and then when they go to the doctor, they get hit with a copay. So not only did you get insurance to cover these things, but they're still putting their hand in your pocket.
Yeah, the copays go up all the time.
Yeah. So one asks, well, why did I get insurance?
That double-edged sword.
Yep. Well, is there anything that you would like to just, I'll give you a minute or two. We don't have much time left, but that you can say to your constituents and our listening audience?
Sure. So, I spent my career in the New York City Police Department, and one of the things that I was always taught as a cop is, really two things that I want to focus on. First, that I spent my career in really a team-based atmosphere. I sat in the car each and every day with people, men, women, different color skin, different religions, different economic backgrounds, grew up in different places, clearly different political beliefs. But my life depended on them and their life depended on me. And I think that provided me with some of the best education possible in order to be a quality representative and a quality elected official. Back in 2021, when I was reelected for the second time to the Hempstead Town Board, I won my district with nearly 70% of the vote. And I won with 70% of the vote, not because I was only supported by Republicans or conservatives, but because Democrats, independents, liberals crossed over their party lines to vote for me because they believe that I had represented them the right way, that I always answered the phone, that I always answered the call, that I did my best to provide what their family needed. Over the last 4 years in the town of Hempstead, which is the largest town in the nation, we've either cut taxes or held the line on taxes while, taxes throughout much of our state have gone up. Our national tax, everything has gone up, and we've been able to hold the line while continuing to providing the services and resources to the communities, and that's important. Mm-hmm. I think I've delivered on the promises that I've made in the town. If we want to keep our communities safe, if we want to strengthen our borders, if we want to treat government like a business and run it like it needs to be, I think that everything that I've done during my tenure on the town board speaks for itself. My career in the fire service, the police department, speaks for itself. I also, one thing that I was taught early on in the police department was you always ride around with your windows down, whether it's the coldest of nights or the hottest of days. Right. You have your windows down so you could smell the streets and hear the streets, and that's exactly what I've done during my time as councilman and exactly what I'll do as a member of Congress.
My guest today has been Anthony D'Esposito, currently a Hempstead Town Councilman running for Congress on the Republican ticket in the 4th Congressional District. I want to thank you for being here. I hope you can reach out again for more insight, and hey, good luck in the election.
All right, thanks so much. Be well.
Well, and the clock on the wall says it's time for this week's Long Island News to get on out of here. Remember to listen every Friday at 3 p.m. right here on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.